What are evil spirits? In the Bible, evil spirits are first referred to in the book of Judges in chapter 9 and verse 23, and then again in the first book of Samuel chapter 16. We'll have a reading from Judges chapter 9 and verse 22. When Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dwelt treacherously with Abimelech. 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse 14. But the spirit of Yahweh departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from Yahweh troubled him. In both cases, the evil spirit comes from God. However, just because this comes from God doesn't mean the evil spirit is supernatural. The phrase evil spirits is a combination of 2 Hebrew words and 2 Greek words, and in the Greek signifies the manifestation of physical and mental afflictions. The word demon means a distributor of fortunes, physical and mental afflictions. First, we will look at the meaning of the words individually, then we will look at the phrase as a whole or considered together. So the word evil, in the biblical context, the word evil refers to something morally wrong, harmful or wicked. It signifies actions or intentions that cause harm, distress or adversity. In the Hebrew language, the term ra denotes evil or calamity, disaster. The Bible portrays God as ultimately in control, and he may allow or send these afflictions as a form of judgment or discipline, as seen in passages like Deuteronomy chapter 28, Amos chapter 3 verses 5 to 7, Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 7, Judges chapter 9 and verse 23, and Samuel chapter 16. The term spirit is used in various ways in the Bible depending on the context. In both Hebrew and Greek, the word primarily means wind, breeze or breath. Figuratively, it is used to represent the animating force or life principle, often symbolic of the mind, art or innermost being of a person. Also, men, animals, angels, God and even demons are described as spirits. Evil spirits. From a medical perspective, evil spirits are understood metaphorically rather than as malevolent spiritual entities. The combination of the 2 Hebrew or Greek words signifies the manifestation of physical and mental afflictions. The term evil spirits in Judges chapter 9 and verse 23 can be understood as a symbolic representation of underlying conflicts or hostilities between 2 groups of people. In ancient times, when the concept of evil spirits was prevalent, people often attributed misfortunes, tensions or destructive actions to the influence of such entities. However, from a modern understanding, these evil spirits can be seen as metaphorical expressions of the disharmony and animosity that arose between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. This can be seen by comparing different translations. So 3 years later, God stirred up trouble between King Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem, and they revolted. When Abimelech had ruled Israel for 3 years, God put a bad feeling between Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem who rebelled against Abimelech. In the New King James, after Abimelech had reigned over Israel 3 years, God sent a spirit of ill will between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dwelt treacherously with Abimelech. The idea of sending an evil spirit between 2 groups can be interpreted as an anthropomorphic language to describe the emergence of animosities or conflicts among people, rather than a literal supernatural being physically placed between the two groups. It signifies the development of hostilities or treacherous actions that led to divisions between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. The first book of Samuel, chapter 16. As we have already pointed out, the Hebrew word translated as evil can also carry the meaning of injurious or troubling or calamity. In these incidents, the term evil spirit could be understood as a distressing emotional or psychological state rather than a malevolent entity. When Saul was troubled by the evil spirit, it is not explicitly attributed to a specific supernatural being. Instead, it is described as an affliction from God. This suggests that the evil spirit may be a metaphorical way of expressing Saul's emotional and mental distress, which could have resulted from various causes such as guilt, fear, internal conflicts. The presence of David, a skillful musician, seemed to have a soothing effect on Saul's troubled mind. The act of playing music is depicted as providing relief and refreshment to Saul, causing the distressing state to subside. This does not necessarily imply that the evil spirit was a literal demon or supernatural being. Instead, it could symbolize the power of music or positive influences to alleviate mental and emotional distresses. From a medical perspective, we can explore various possibilities. Psychological distress. Saul's troubling condition may have resulted from psychological factors such as anxiety, depression, or internal conflicts. This could have been influenced by the pressure of being a king, facing military challenges, or feeling insecure and inadequate. Mood disorder. Saul's symptoms could be indicative of a mood disorder such as bipolar disorder or major depressive disorders, which can involve mood swings, feelings of sadness, and disturbances in thinking. Physical health. Saul's distresses might have been related to an underlying medical condition such as neurological disorders or other physical ailments afflicting his mental well-being. Stress and trauma. Saul's experiences as a king, including warfare and political challenges, could have exposed him to significant stress and trauma, leading to emotional and psychological difficulties. External influences. It is important to consider the impact of external factors such as the actions of his enemies, political conspiracies, or interpersonal conflicts would have contributed to Saul's distress. Evil spirits. In the biblical medical diagnosis, evil spirits are not understood as supernatural beings or minions of Satan. Instead, they are interpreted as afflictions sent by God for specific purposes rather than representing the work of malevolent spiritual entities. The Hebrew word for evil is ruach, and it can refer to harm, calamity, or adversity. In modern medical terms, evil spirits may metaphorically represent various psychological afflictions or distressing states of mind such as anxiety, depression, or other emotional turmoil. Biblical medical diagnosis does not attribute these evil spirits to the influence of Satan, but rather see them as part of the human experience, reflecting the consequence of sin and disobedience to God's commandments. And sin is that physical element of the animal nature which causes all diseases, death and resolution into dust.